Yes, it's recorded now.
All right, all right. So without further ado, let's jump right into this. Thank you, Anne Marie, for the introduction. I truly appreciate it. But before we get into it, allow me to share with you a couple of Zoom etiquettes, if you don't mind. What I would like to share first is our privacy policy. Ladies and gentlemen, by attending this virtual session presentation, you are granting permission to be recorded, both your voice and picture. This recorded information will not be available to the general public, but will be used for the sole purpose of reference material for Toastmasters members. So thank you for that. And just to give you a quick round of etiquettes for our Zoom meeting, down below left-hand corner, please, you have your mute and unmute your icon for your microphone. Again, you will be allowed to mute and unmute yourself. We are on the Zoom meeting platform because we're going to have a discussion later on following the presentation. However, we do have our Zoom hosts that are going to be monitoring and making sure everyone stays on mute. So if you don't mind at this point in time, please check your microphone now and place yourself on mute. You will know you're on mute if you have a red line across your microphone. We want to not distract our presenter. I will give everyone a moment to do so. Excellent. Anne Marie and Kathleen, you'll be watching that to make sure everyone stays on mute, correct? All right, so let's jump into this. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to introduce to some and present to others. Let me start off by saying, welcome to Corporate Conversations. Pat Johnson, past international president of Toastmasters International, led a busy life. She joined the Communication and Leadership Organization in 1983 and has been a member ever since. Although she was involved in communication portion of the program immediately, she soon found herself raising her hand for leadership roles and the journey continued. In 2001, 2002, she led the province of British Columbia in Canada, then District 21, to distinguished district status. In 2004 through 2006, she was elected to serve as International Director on the International Board of Toastmasters International and continued through the Vice President roles until 2010, 2011, when she served our educational organization as International President and Chairman of the Board. Pat Johnson is the only Canadian woman to serve in this prestigious role and the fifth woman international president in this long history of the organization. Pat has spoken in a long list of countries around the globe as a keynote speaker and educator over the past 25 years. She served as a manager for Learning Masters, who provided expertise to the new Pathways program curriculum. This was an exciting project which included approximately 250 Learning Masters worldwide. In 2017, Pat welcomed the world of Toastmasters to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, as the host district convention chair for the 2017 International Convention. She also co-hosted the first ever Toastmasters cruise that took us to Alaska from following the convention. How many of you all remember that? She is the recipient of our President's Citation Award given for outstanding leadership and communication on a global level. At the International Convention in Chicago, US of A, August 2018, Pat launched her handbook entitled A Handbook for Building and Sustaining Vibrant Toastmasters Program in Corporations. This writing, the writing of this book was the result of her passion for both the corporate and government environments and the Toastmasters program. She continued to be a strong advocate wherever and whenever possible for the practice and discipline of building sustainable corporate programs that support Toastmasters International, our members, districts, and corporate partners. Pat Johnson is currently serving as Region 10, which is in Europe and UK, advisor for the 2021 Toastmasters term and enjoying the challenge. Pat is passionate about her business, Pat Johnson and Associates. Write that down, Pat Johnson and Associates, where she coaches leads where she coaches leaders as they search for their greatest version of the authentic self. She loves her work where she partners with individuals to overcome their self limitations and to aspire more in their life. Pat is an affiliate coach at Accomplishment Coachings, where she was certified as an ontological trained life coach. She also holds the world class speaking coach certificate. Well done. Today, we will focus on the district's needs to do we will focus on what the district needs to do in order to prepare and support for the newly built or newly rebuilt corporate programs as well as their members. What do we do? What do we need to know? What do we need to know to do as area directors, area division directors, as club growth directors, as program quality directors, and also as a district director? How about as coaches, what we need to do as sponsors and mentors? What language do we speak? What do we understand? Do we understand one another? Do we know our audience? Do we understand how we can and will meet their training needs? What are their training needs? What do we, as leaders of the district, need to provide when we offer COT, which is our club officers training? How about our district officers training? Where and how do we start? And then, how do we continue to meet these needs so we can ensure sustainable corporate programs? Finally, everyone, why do we care as a leadership team? So again, I say, please help me welcome. And again, I present to some and introduce to others, Pat Johnson, as we together tonight explore the questions and seek the answers to all of those questions I listed. Without further ado, Pat Johnson, past International Director, Region 10 Advisor, and Coach.
Thank you so much, Madam District Governor or District Director. Wow, that was a flashback for those of you that were around before we had directors. Welcome everyone, particularly Region 7, anyone in Region 7, and those outside that somehow had this invitation end up in your inbox. And you're probably going, who sent this to me? And why am I here? Well, those of you that registered, first of all, had an opportunity to indicate in that registration what you hope to get out of here. And I have 3 whole pages of tiny writing for the reasons that you're all here. So I've clumped them together, and thank you for answering those. I know that sometimes I give thought when I answer those types of questions, and sometimes I just put down something to get them out of the way so I can get registered. But I clumped them into 3 broad categories, and I'm hoping to have sufficient time to touch those 3 categories. I also want to say right up at the front note, I'm going to spend about an hour talking, and then we're going to have about a half an hour Q&A. So if you have questions as we're going along, write them so you don't lose them. So the 3 categories, and backtrack for a moment. And also, if you have questions that are unanswered at the end of this time, because I may not cover everything, I'll get somebody to mute the background music. Great, thank you.
It is Friday night.
It is. We'll party after. So if you have questions that are outstanding, I'll get perhaps somebody to provide my email in the chat box, and feel free to contact me by email if you have further questions, and we can certainly find answers, or I'll share my opinion on certain items. So I know the district team has my email address, and so I give permission to post it in the chat box for people. So feel free, but in the subject line, if you write me an email in the subject line, please put corporate programs or corporate talk, something so that I know it's not spam. So the three categories that I identified that were the major items that were identified today was support the corporation as an area director or a division director through club officer training, from a different perspective, how to reset and resell the club, as well as accountability. How do we create accountability? So all that kind of, that ball of issue about how to support the corporation and being a viable, sustainable program. And so there's some real fundamental stuff that we'll talk about there. Then the second one is, how do we keep them engaged? And so I'm going to talk about the transferable skills. And this is a lot of language in how we relate those transferable skills to what they're doing. So some of them will say, oh, it's just more work. But this is actually practicing and building a skill that applies directly to your careers on the long term. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the fact that this is education and how it can be set up as education in the corporation, so that Toastmasters isn't doing all the heavy lifting, that we want to create a partnership with the corporation so that they're also doing heavy lifting for us in that partnership. And so we want it to be like a 50-50 deal here. And then it works because they've got some, they're not sitting watching us do it. They're actually involved in doing it as well. And then the third category was members' enthusiasm engagement, and really a lot about recruiting new members and building enthusiasm to keep them engaged. And so that overlaps those other two categories. But those were the three broad categories that were hugely identified. There were some other more general comments. Some people are just looking for something to do on Friday night. There's one person here that was looking to see if there were any single women on the call. And there was another call, somebody wants to be successful, and they thought if they hung out with a bunch of successful people, that might happen. So we'll see what happens. Let me know how it all goes for you tonight. So let's start with how to support the corporation, both as area division director, down through the district and things districts can do, and looking at that reset and resell as well as accountability. And so I want to start with this. And first of all, for you that have not been part of a corporate program or club, those of you that are in community clubs, I want you to forget most of what you know about how Toastmasters runs there. And if you're in what might be called a corporate club, but it's got people from all over the place and it's not exclusive to your corporation, it's not closed, then I want you to forget what you know about Toastmasters and how your club runs. Because I want to present a concept that caused me to do Toastmasters differently in the corporate world. As Cynthia explained at the beginning, I wrote this book and got this idea as a result of running training departments and hiring education to come into the corporations and to government agencies. And I went, wow, if I saw Toastmasters come in and the way that we set up community clubs and that we expect our students who enroll to run it, I would not hire them. And so then I took this step back and went, oh, let's re-look at this, because Toastmasters is one of those grassroots organizations. We grow it. And what happens is Pat goes out, creates another club, and I take the agenda from my current club and I use it for there because that's what I know. And I create that club that looks exactly like the one I came from. And therein lies most of our challenges in our corporate world, is we have basically created what looks like a community club and what behaves like a community club, rather than creating an education program in a corporate environment. So for those of you that work in a corporation, I'm curious, because the likeliness is that when you go to a training at work, whether it's for nonviolent communication or project management or a new software that they're launching or a new accounting practice, you probably go, you register somehow in your organization. They tell you where you go at what time. You go and you check in, your attendance is taken, you finish the course, you leave, you go back to the workplace during work hours. And in most cases, you don't even pay for that. Your organization pays for it. My question, this is my fundamental question, why do we think Toastmasters is less valuable when corporations come to us looking for communication and leadership skills? They can't find it in most places because this is hard stuff to find, particularly at the price point of Toastmasters. You can't find it at that price point. So they come looking for this and we go, oh, it doesn't matter. We could get the people to pay for it and we'll do it on their lunch hour. Like, we undersell Toastmasters. So we end up setting ourselves up to not be important. And then when the organization forgets about us and doesn't support us and people don't want to come, I think we've created our own demise by not saying we're important. We're like project management. We're like software training. We're like nonviolent communication. We need to be where skills are developed on Tuesday afternoons at 2 o'clock for 1 hour. Every Tuesday at 2 o'clock from 3 o'clock, whatever time fits the schedule, but that we have a set time where we're in the training room and the students of Toastmasters communication and leadership program show up, and it's part of their work responsibility because we've sold it as part of their corporate training package. So we go back to the very beginning. When we walk in and we set this up, we talk to the corporation like this. So tell me if you've identified, do you have a training needs assessment? Have you identified your corporate training needs? And then I start a conversation like that. So they tell me how they've identified it. And if they say, oh, we don't have that, I say, how do you know there's actually need for communication and leadership training in your organization? Now, in most cases, I want to be talking to the HR department or the training department, whoever's doing training. I'll definitely talk to hire people if they get me them, but they're usually not the one that makes the decision or knows what to do with it. That's great if you've got a high level contact, go in, sell them the concept, they'll send you to HR or learning and development to implement it, which it works either way. But what you want to talk about is that Toastmasters is coming in to partner with you. And so here's where we go away from the traditional club idea. Toastmasters is going to bring the curriculum. So think of yourself as the training contractor, and you've got this course that this company wants to buy. And you say, you can buy the curriculum, but there's some conditions attached to it. We come in and monitor the delivery of the program, and we'll be involved in it. We'll also report out to you the success and the attendance so that you know people are attending that you're paying for. So there's some accountability. But also your part is, because there's certain requirements for the Toastmasters program to actually run effectively, because it's a skill building exercise and people get some knowledge, but then we practice. And that's the secret sauce of the Toastmasters curriculum, is that we practice and we build a skill. We build confidence, we build self-esteem while we're practicing these skills in this safe environment. And that's what makes us unique. We don't have people come in, take a class for a day, go back to their workplace, put the binder on the shelf and forget all about the training. They actually come back week after week and practice and build that skill and then get feedback on it and try it again. So what we want to say is that now, because of that, our model has been proven. We've been in business for 96 years. We've had millions of people go through this. We currently have 360,000 students enrolled in this program at any one time. And so it's proven to work. What we want from you in order to partner, and this is something you need to decide as a corporation that you're able to do, that we need a minimum of 23, 25, 30 people at all times in this program, because we know that a minimum of 20 people is required at every session to actually have a productive learning session. That is their responsibility. If they want to hire us and bring our curriculum in, they need to provide sufficient people. So my question is, are you as a corporation able to do that? And I just sit and wait. I give them lots of time to talk. Then I say, you know, our curriculum is provided online. Do you have the capacity in-house to allow that online curriculum to be accessed by your employees? And if they have firewalls, I go, is this something that you can deal with? Or are you expecting your employees to download that stuff at their home on their own time? So those are things that they need to be right up front to the students that are going to enroll for the Toastmasters Communication and Leadership Program. Okay. So there's things that, you know, I talk about that. I'm a very strong advocate for weekly meetings. And I talk to them about this because we're building a skill. And in the corporate world, there's always conflicts in terms of time management. And there's things that can't be postponed for 1 hour. They're rare, but there's some things that can't be postponed for 1 hour. And so if person A misses one meeting because of a crisis at work, then they don't get to practice a skill for another 2 weeks. And practicing skills is what we're about. And then they might come to that program once a week or once a month and not get to speak. So how, as a program, are we actually being able to say, we can deliver the goods? We can help your employees gain these skills if we don't provide the guidelines in which we set ourselves up to be successful, as well as the participants to be successful. So let's not be shy in asking for what we want and what we need to be highly effective. Okay, because remember, this is about skills. And Toastmasters is listening, thinking, and speaking skills. So listening always comes first. Thinking comes second, and speaking comes third. Now, I don't know about your corporations, but when I was buying training, I could not find a listening skill course. I couldn't find it to bring my employees. And listening skills are almost, what do they call it, extinct in the workplace. People don't listen anymore. And thinking skills, we can all use more thinking skills or deeper thinking or analytical skills. So that's what I sell the corporation, is listening skills, thinking skills, and then speaking skills. I also talk about the transferable skills. So I talk about, in their language, I talk about the critical listening skills. I talk about accountability, because we all need to build accountability at workplace. And that is something that people need to learn. I talk about how we are an ideal training ground for anybody that wants to become a supervisor of people, because we do some management training in the course of our program. If people leave lead meetings or are part of the leadership team within that that program, which we in our community club, we would call them club executive, but because we don't call this a club, we call it a learning program, then I call them the leadership committee. And so they have different roles because the corporation's doing a lot of our managing the management of the program. And it's not up to the executive of the program. So they're leaders in the program. So I talk about how we build teamwork because we're always working as teams in the Toastmasters program. We have the critical thinking skills. Then they have presentation skills. And we talk about giving presentations at conferences. We could have hundreds of people in the audience, or we could have 10 people at a staff meeting, but they're doing presentations. Organizational skills, to be more productive, to be more concise, even in your presentations, to do them within the allocated time, to run meetings according to an agenda and have it timed out so that you get the business done and get out of the meetings. I do not call our Toastmasters sessions in a corporation meetings because nobody wants to buy more meetings. Nobody wants to go to another meeting. So I call them learning sessions. So it's just changing to get them to orient to Toastmasters, that Toastmasters is a learning experience. It's an education program that we've brought. So I don't call them members. I call them participants or learners or students, whatever works in that environment. I also talk to the organization and the people that are interested about feedback skills, giving feedback that is absolutely critical if you're a supervisor at any level, or even if you go home and you're a parent, right? It's a transferable skill. You could use it with your spouse. You could use it with your kids if they happen to be of the age where they still listen to you, or older and they think you're now wise. You can use it with staff members. So you're always being able to provide, having difficult conversations. We have those in Toastmasters because we have this interpersonal relationships that we have to work out. Meeting management is another transferable skill that I talk to them about. Those interpersonal communications where suddenly we get to know people in different parts of the organization. And it's not that jerk that works down in finance anymore, but it's Kathy who has interesting stories that she shares all the time. So dynamics change in Toastmasters, and it also affects the morale in the workplace. If it's doing its job, it's having a positive influence. I know when I come out of my Toastmasters meeting, we're all revved and jazzed for the week. And that's what you want spilling out into your workplace, that people are going, what are you guys doing in there? Like, this is something I want. And I also talk about strategic planning, setting and managing goals, because this is what we do when we set the Distinguished Club program, which is a misnamed event for this circumstance. But right now I refer to it as strategic planning. We're going to make a strategic plan for the year for this program. And through that, you're actually going to learn hands-on how to do it. Bring the team together of leaders. We're going to build a plan. And then we're actually going to manage to those objectives throughout the year. So you get the participants to work with you as a team to actually fulfill the goals that we've set. So that's some of the language that I use when I'm talking to a corporation and to people that are interested in the Toastmasters program in the corporation. I hope that makes sense. So when we get into the club, and I just want to talk very briefly about this, when we get into the education program, the organization says we're good to go. I go, there's a few more things that are really important for you to know about the Toastmasters program. So this is all about making sure that they're playing with us and they know what the game is. So we don't keep any secrets from the organization because they have to come and play. So we tell them up front how much it costs. And we ask them for, if we're meeting every week, that will they support their employees with time and money to go? In most cases, the money's not an object. That's been my experience. And time often isn't either. When we reframe this, I ask them if they have a training allowance for their employees in the corporation. Now, some will say yes and some will say no. If they say no, I say, how, if I was your employee and I wanted to go to an hour's training every week for, say, 45, 44, 43 weeks of the year, for that many hours, how would I go about getting approval? And then I would listen to them because they already know how they run their organization and we want to fit into them. We don't want to tell them how we're going to do it because we're partnering with them. So this is a different mindset. When we get, I also tell them how we pay tuition. So I talk about tuition. I don't talk about dues because it's an education program. They think about tuition for education. I talk about the curriculum. I never say the word pathways. That it doesn't matter. They don't care what it's called. We've got an education program. I talk about learning sessions, etc., and I've talked about that. I also talk about critical success factors or key performance indicators. And I also talk to them because they're interested in return on investment. So that's part of what we need to do as partners is we need to take attendance. We need to track who's doing what. And if we set those Toastmaster programs in the corporation up through Easy Speak, they track what people are doing and who's at the meetings. So all we need to do is take that and report it back to the corporation. Because the training department or the HR department who has hired us and has paid the money out of their budget, they want to know that people are showing up, especially if they're giving them time and they're paying. So people say, well, if individuals don't pay, they got no skin in the game. There's many ways of making them accountable. So you could talk to the corporation about having this written into their performance reviews or their whatever it's called, the employee performance development plans. And if I actually give an example of this that I created for my staff, and I've included it in my book that actually Toastmasters sells in the shop if you're interested. They sell it in their store. But I talk about when my employee came to me and said, I want to go to Toastmasters, I said, okay, how can I support you? And they said, well, I'd like to have some time and money to go. And I said, great. That would be a good investment. I think that let's talk about what you want to learn and what you want to get. And let's start with 6 months. And so we wrote an agreement and we discussed it that I would reimburse her upon successful completion of 6 months at that time. And then if it was going well, we would extend it for another 6 months. So we decided to go on 6 months terms. That seemed to work with Toastmasters and with her and me. So we set some expectations. And I was her supervisor, okay? So as her supervisor, I said, I expect you to attend a minimum of 75% of the Toastmaster sessions. If you do that, you meet one of the criteria and I will reimburse you and you don't have to pay back the time. The other thing is that you must complete at least 3 prepared presentations in that 6-month period of time, and you must do a minimum of 6 other role assignments within that 6 months. So those were my personal expectations of her. She agreed. We signed that agreement in the performance review, and we visited it in 6 months' time. when she met that criteria, which I could get from the Toastmasters records, I then reimbursed her through the training fund, and she didn't have to make up the time. So there was accountability, and it was very strong accountability. It was more accountability than her paying for the course, actually, because it's not a lot of money. People give that money away, that much money away every day. Lots of people do. So the money's not really a strong engagement. So she was held accountable with me as her supervisor, and it worked for the organization because they actually created a policy based on that, saying that it would be part of the performance review agreement with the staff, with their supervisor. And here's the policy, that the corporation would actually agree to reimburse the tuition as well as the time for the person attending if they met this agreed upon criteria. It worked, and it helped to have a policy in the organization. Now, not every organization deals with it that way. That's just my personal experience, and you have to find your own way. When I did it in another organization, the HR department was involved, and they created new employee hire packages, and in that went Toastmasters. And when they brought on new employees, because they're responsible for having over 20 participants in that training program at all times, whenever they hired new people, their new employees went to an orientation. One of the Toastmasters that was one of the leaders in that program came and did maybe a 10-minute presentation to new employees for orientation, and encouraged them to join the Toastmasters program that was in-house, because they presented it as one of the benefits of working there. Those employees didn't even see the money. They didn't talk about money. They didn't talk about time. This happened on Wednesday afternoons from 1 till 2 as part of their workplace, and it was paid. It was invisible to the employees. They just walked in, had an agreement with their supervisor, and attended the Toastmasters program. So those are some things. The other couple of things quickly that I do talk to corporations about, because it's very different orientation for them when they bring the Toastmasters program in. They need to know that there's no pass or fail in Toastmasters, and that there's no graduation day, that people learn at their own pace, that it is a non-pass or fail environment, and that people can come and go as long as they wish to come and go, and that they're learning. And that's to be discussed with their supervisor. Because I've had supervisors come to me and say, like, could you tell me when Jan's going to actually graduate from Toastmasters? And I go, oh, there is no graduation. It just goes on. I've been here 37 years and I haven't graduated yet. So, but I found things to continue learning. So really important to talk about that. I would leave it to the organization to figure out how they find the participants. They should find participants the very same way as they find participants for their performance management programs, or if they've got project management, whatever they've got going on. We want to just fit in and do it the way that they have done it and are doing it. And we just fit in to the training department as another course listed in the training calendar. So however they promote, that's how we'll be promoted. I also think that it's really important for us to find ways to provide them with good information so that they can actually promote the objectives of the Toastmasters program, and so that they actually know what they're getting. And that's back to that list of transferable skills that I was talking about in the beginning. A couple of things not to do, just from personal experience. I've learned by doing a lot of corporate calls not to overtalk. I ask some questions and then I do a lot of listening. So that's really important. I also know that they're not interested in how amazing our experience has been in Toastmasters. They're making they're making a professional decision to meet needs, and they're much more interested in spending that small amount of time that we have with them talking about the transferables, what that program will actually look like when it's on site and how it'll function, not what we got out of it or how we love it or we found our long lost family or tribe. That will end the sale before we get them enrolled. And really watch when we apologize. Sometimes we apologize unconsciously. So we'll say, well, it'll just take a little bit of, or we could just fit it over here. And we start to have all these lists, these small words that keep making the program less important, that we can just squeeze in. Don't notice us. We'll be over here in the corner and we won't make a lot of noise and we don't cost a lot of money and we don't have to take any of your time. And so we basically talk ourselves out of the business because they're going like, isn't this some amazing program that's been around for 96 years in 145 countries of the world, and you've got 360,000 participants in it right now? Like, why are you hiding it? So think about that and just be aware of your words. Be bold. And talk about the benefits from their perspective. You know, as communicators, we're so careful to say the first thing you have to know when you prepare a speech is who is your audience? And you have to then tailor your presentation to the audience. Fellow Toastmasters, let's please prepare this presentation for our corporate audience. They're going to have their corporate speak, and we're going to have our Toastmaster jargon. But as I said in the promotion video, it's our responsibility as the contractor who's got the curriculum and we're interested in doing business. It's our responsibility to connect with them and to support them in getting all the things in place that'll make us highly successful. So I encourage you to begin as you intend to continue. Keep it high level, put Toastmasters where it warrants the respect that in that organization that it's due. I think also a couple of the things that I do say at the beginning is when I'm talking to the corporation, and whether this is at the information or demonstration meeting, whatever it might be, I do talk about the leadership role because the communication's fairly obvious. But I talk about the communication and the communication, pardon me, I talk about the leadership and that the leadership training is actually experiential, that you have to get in and you have to do it. And in order to do that, there's 7 leadership roles in every program we run. And I refer to them as liaison positions because really when the corporation partners with Toastmasters and they're doing a lot of the administrative management, we've got a leadership team of 7 people in that Toastmaster program. And they could be called, I don't know, I name them different things based on what the corporate environment calls their leaders, because I don't want them to be vice presidents if we've got vice presidents in the corporation. So I don't want that kind of confusion. So I've found that the word liaison is probably the most generic. So I call the so-called president, I translate that to the chief liaison. And then they would be the person that takes the data every 3-4 months to the training department or the HR department, or if you happen to have a senior manager, a vice president, who's also your sponsor, if you've got one of those, I would take that data also to them and say, here's what's happening. We're making good progress. We've got 23 people who come. Here's the attendance. I would basically give them a high-level report of what I'm sending the data, the same data that I'm sending to the training or HR department, just to keep them in in the circle so they know we're there and we're taking up space and we're delivering. And then they see that people are working the program. That's the only way they're going to see a return on investment, is when they know that Pat is in the program and they start seeing Pat now being called to MC the staff event. And they go, oh, isn't she in the Toastmasters program? So we need to do that. We need to let them know who's there. And I mean, HR will know, but they want to know, are the people attending, because we're paying and giving them time. So really important. So that's the chief liaison. Then we've got VP of membership. The equivalent to that for me is really the education liaison. And I see this person really not being much different than our vice president of membership or education in our clubs, because they really need to organize who's doing what a month ahead. We have to have it at least a month ahead, because people have to manage their work life. So this is an environment where the curriculum cannot be, let's make it up when we walk in the room. We need to have it planned out a month, 6 weeks in advance, so people can slot and manage their career as well as their time at work. That all has to be impeccably done, in my opinion, to set it up for success. So setting it out, and that education liaison person really needs to know what the learning goals are and what of each of those participants, because they're supporting. So if for example, Cecilia said that, her goal is to run meetings in the workplace, and yet Cecilia's never signed up to be Toastmaster or general evaluator or one of the leadership roles, that liaison, that education liaison, has to get on Cecilia's case a bit. Say, come on, Cecilia, step up. That's how we're going to learn. You can watch for so many months, but then you have to practice, and we'll mentor you. We can actually tag team 1 week, perhaps. And so there's ways of managing that. So that's what that leader is doing. The next leader would be, say, membership. Well, they're not recruiting members. They're not having open houses. They're not chasing people down in the hallways at work, because the employer is sending people and people are asking to go. So it's a different thing. So that membership liaison is actually supporting and working with HR and training, whoever's sending the employees, letting them know that we've got 22 members now. We could have 5 more members if we've got space for them. Like, they're talking about the enrollment. They're talking about bringing new people on. They might be doing the orientation of those brand new participants, because those brand new participants walk in and they don't know what's happening. They've never heard an evaluation like this before. They don't know how to get into pathways. So that member liaison really needs to be supporting those new participants to get involved, get in the program, and get active. Now you can see there's going to be some overlapping from some of these liaison roles, because that membership liaison is going to be working with the education liaison, right? But that's how teamwork happens. That's the learning on the ground with teamwork, and putting it forward that way. Then we're going to have the say that what we call the club administrator or secretary. This is going to be our administrative liaison. This is a person that's going to gather the data and track it. Now, if they use Easy Speak, that's going to be easy. If not, they're going to be taking attendance and tracking on a spreadsheet, probably, or some other way that they decide, the participants' involvement and what's happening. So this many people took part this week, this many people did table topics, this many people gave presentations. Whatever the data is that we can report out for deliverables to the organization, so that then we can start to see that ROI, or return on investment. So that's the administrative liaison. They're working with membership and the education liaison people. The finance liaison is working directly with the finance department and the training department, however they manage the money in that corporation. They're finding out at the beginning of their role of leader in this program, how do we pay? And where do we pay? And what do you need as a corporation to actually pay? And so they make sure that this is all involved and looked after and in place. So that takes it, they stick handle that through the corporation and through Toastmasters International. So that's the finance liaison. Then we have Sergeant at Arms. This might be a meeting liaison. This might not be a huge role because you're not going to have a lot of equipment. You're not going to have banners necessarily. You're not going to have a lot of logistics to deal with. But what they do need to look after is to make sure that the training room is booked and, you know, anything that's required. Some places, depending on the corporate environment, provide refreshments for the meetings, all of that we have to, you know, they know what happens inside. So that's their responsibility. And what's the other one that I've forgotten? Any public relations. This public relations liaison is the person that would actually support and probably be part of maybe the chief liaison and the public relations liaison would be the people that could be available to speak at that new member or that new employee orientation, and or provide the materials for the training department when they need to do promotion. Because the last thing we want to do is leave somebody sitting in the training department selling Toastmasters program that doesn't know anything about it. That's a fail right away. And that's often what, you know, can happen when we don't take responsibility to make sure that they've got the material that they need. And so they could be writing the outline of the program for the training calendar, if there is such a thing, or if there's a write up on the intranet, make sure that they're involved in that. So that would be their leadership roles. These people also, at the very beginning, I let the corporation know that because they're in the leadership track and they're experiencing leadership, that there is mandatory, and I use the word mandatory, there's mandatory leadership training for them outside. And this will be outside of work hours. And there's an expectation that they participate because they are a leader in the program. And I just put it out there, just plain like that. I don't put any energy spin on it. I don't have any apologies for it. All of us have gone to training that supported us in our careers that wasn't paid time. And that's exactly what I asked them for. So those are things that I talk to the organization about right up front. I think that the leadership roles in the program are powerful because they get to experience it and they're in charge of that strategic planning. So I think there's a lot of things that sell that benefit for those people to get involved. So all of that is about, you know, engagement and how we keep people engaged, how we keep the corporation engaged, how we support the corporation. Let's talk very briefly about that because I've covered a lot of it in terms of what we tell them. But when this is really important as area and division directors to know that you're not talking about them having an open house to get membership. You're not talking about them doing the things that happen in community clubs. We're talking about a different environment. This is a training program. So we have to look at how do we maintain that credibility and that quality of service? How do we create that excellence? And this brings some responsibility to bear on the districts. So when we have club officer training, you must, if you have corporate programs, you must have a corporate leadership training component to your COTs. It's required. They need a place to go to talk about their unique challenges, and they're different. We don't want the chief liaison sitting in club president because it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same. It's a different category. It's almost like we've created two different paths under membership in our organization. We want to look at division and area directors when they report back. How do they report what's going on? They need to be able to translate that. And the reality is that they may not get into these corporate programs because they're held during work hours. And the corporation might say, we don't have outside people sit in on our classes to audit classes. Therefore, you may be doing it over a call and having a conversation. But I set the corporation up and the leaders up that they're going to this training. And then as a district, we have to offer this training. I've found that this is quite simple. In the first few years, as we're rebuilding and building and transferring community clubs that are inside corporations over to a program approach, that mostly we need to just have a really good facilitator in the room that understands the corporate goal of how to get the programs functioning. And then it's talking to them as they bring their challenges. Most of the challenges are education, are engagement, accountability, and membership. And all of those are part and parcel of partnering with the corporation correctly. To set it up that it's a partnership. And then those problems are not things that Toastmasters or the student is expected to solve, but that the corporation, because they want to provide this training, they need to solve it. So really important to set it up and to support the corporations in getting over into this approach. Now, I'll just declare I have a huge bias on this because I've done it this way and I've done it the other way. And this way as a corporate program is a way less painful. And the very first club program that I built this way lasted 22 years. And they just rolled over every year and did an amazing job. And they were never below 20. And they weren't a huge IT company, but they had super support. And the VPs used to phone me up and talk about the Toastmasters program. And they got invited to the monthly, because it was an IT company that did projects, they actually got invited as Toastmasters to celebrate their successes at the monthly project status meeting. And that they would actually have a section in their recognition event every month where they would say, okay, what's happened in Toastmasters this month? And the people would get up and cheer and celebrate their successes. So it can be part of the culture, but we have to let it go and let them be able to do that. I think also to go to the third part about members' enthusiasm and engagement, I think this will happen. I think this happens and they get buy-in when we let the corporation get involved because they start to see the results. They see the people that are participating, and then people start to get acknowledged at work for what they're accomplishing. Just recently, I had one of our members in our club brought his boss to Toastmasters. And when I went over to speak to her after the meeting and ask her if she was interested in joining, I didn't know she was his boss, but I said, oh, what brought you to Toastmasters? And she said, oh, I came with my employee, so-and-so. And I went, oh, that's interesting. What did you think? And she said, well, I was so curious because I've been watching his development at work. And I finally asked him, what are you doing? You are so different. And he said, oh, I've been going to Toastmasters. And she said, I need to do what you're doing. And there she was, his supervisor. And so she joined our Toastmasters club. So I think that we sell ourselves with the product and the results that we get. And when we hold the people accountable and we expect them to perform and be their highest and best and show up and put it forward, that they do. And that sells our program over and over again. And when people get promotions and acknowledgement in their workplaces, they will be engaged. I had the good fortune of being in Toastmasters when I started my professional career. I had had a number of jobs, but they weren't certainly my profession. And I got involved in Toastmasters, came out of it my shell and started having an opinion and being able to speak up, and started going to school on weekends and nights because my son was already in university, but started building my career. But my career it was going fairly well, but Toastmasters created an extra degree on that slope because I got to practice the stuff. Even when I went to take a course, say at the Justice Institute, because I discovered that I was having difficulties dealing with conflict and I wanted to shy away from that. So I went to the Justice Institute and I took a 210-hour program on conflict resolution, mediation, and negotiation. When I graduated with that certificate, I didn't make it a big deal in the workplace until I went to Toastmasters and I practiced and I talked about the concepts over the period I was taking that schooling so I could apply it in my workplace. So Toastmasters didn't teach me everything I need to be a leader and to be a successful senior manager in government or the corporation, but it provided me the place where I could safely practice. And it also helped me identify the gaps that I had in teamwork, in dealing with conflict, in presenting my ideas, all those parts of being a good supervisor or manager or a leader out in the world. So, I owe a vote of gratitude to Toastmasters for having me. And I'm glad there's no graduation because I haven't had to leave or get kicked out yet. But I'm just going to turn it over now to look at questions and respond to anything that you might have that you want to clarify or talk about. And I hope that I've shared something in this motor mouthing past 40 minutes or 50 minutes that would be of use to you. So I'll just go to question and answers, who's ever managing those.
Hi, Pat. We have a question from Rich Lamert. Rich, if you'd like to take yourself off of mute.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate both, congratulations both to District 18 for hosting this and to Pat for an excellent summary. I have read your book. I haven't memorized it yet, so I apologize for not having the full thing. But I'm going to follow up on one of your last points with the separate sessions for the corporate liaisons versus the community. We just split. North Carolina just split, so we're a brand new district. But even before the split, I don't think we did enough to support the corporate programs. And that is one of my thrusts as the program quality director this year. I have proposed having a set of separate officer training, one for community, one for corporate. It hasn't been received well, and I think it's asking a lot for everybody to make the full jump. So basically, the question would be suggestions for how to maximize the effectiveness either of convincing people to go that route, or if we're going with the combined, how to maximize the presentations to get both sides satisfied.
Well, let me ask you this question, Rich. How successful have you been in getting the corporates out to your COTs?
From what I understand, it's mixed. There are some companies that they consider this just like a club, and they're familiar with the terms clubs and Toastmasters, so they just think it's the same thing. And then there are others that I'm not sure we've ever seen their office.
Yeah. And therein lies where I arrive in my thinking. I look at things, I go to club officer training after 37 years of going, and I always learn something. I don't learn anything about the roles and responsibilities because I pretty well have those memorized. But I always learn different ideas or uniqueness that people are presenting. But if a corporation is actually set up, not like a community club, but if they're set up like a program, what's talked about at COT has no context for them. It has no relevance at all to what they're doing. They don't have VP of membership. We say, oh, you break away and go to your president's training. Somebody stands up and goes, what's that? We're not presidents. So it depends on where you are. If you're not totally into two paths and you might want to build that way, then you could say, we're going to have a special session for those in corporations that actually want to talk about what can you do differently in your corporation to build it strong. And that's when you start to plant these seeds of how to rebuild those clubs so they're sustainable. Because they might survive today, but my experience, and I've looked at a lot of corporate clubs the world over, and it doesn't matter what country we're in, most of them are not thriving because it requires one person. And if it's Rich in the corporation, Rich is running down the hallways, putting up posters in the lunchroom, hoping somebody might want to come on their lunch hour because they've got no friends and they're going to come to Toastmasters. That's not how to do a professional education program. And that's what I'm proposing, is that we put it out of, let's fit this in, to let's make this a professional program. Let's make it part of the mainstream. And so when we have those sessions for corporations, I've done them, and all I've done is open it up for discussion. You don't have to have a bunch of information. They'll bring the challenges, and then I'll say, do people have things to share? And it's just a facilitation process, because most of them will have some ideas. If you have the good fortune in your district to have some programs that are actually programs the way I would build them, or I recommend, then they're going to influence the ones that are community clubs inside a corporation that are not surviving or thriving. And there'll also be some of those that are still thriving. But the difficulty is when the person or the two people that are maintaining that club, because it's not being maintained by the corporation. In most cases, it's being maintained by one or two dedicated Toastmasters. When those two Toastmasters get totally burnt out, that club is not going to survive or thrive. And so that's why we want to transfer the ownership off of those individual Toastmasters over to the corporation. So I'm just, do it. Talk to me. Yeah, it's worth it. Just ask to have a facilitated discussion with the corporates and just explore what they need from the district. Ask them what they would like, what would be useful. And you'll gain a lot from that. There's no sense holding something if there's no value for the person. They won't come back a second time. They might innocently walk in the first time, but if they find it was a waste of their time, they will not be back. I wouldn't go back, because our time's valuable. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you,
Let me
Rich.
know how it goes, Rich.
Okay.
Our next person is Gwendolyn Talbot. She had a statement, not a question. Gwendolyn, did you want to come off of mute, please, and give your statement?
Thank you very much. When you were talking, Pat, about there's no graduation or what have you, is that an opportunity to talk about the proficiencies that Toastmasters International issues?
Well, yes, that's where I would be talking about all the transferable skills. But I find that talking about no graduation is important, because they are if they're a training department that runs ordinary training programs, the longest training program they might offer
6 weeks.
in-house, well, maybe, yeah, might offer a 6-week program. Now we've got people that have been going for 6 months to a program and come and ask to pay tuition again. We're going, well, like, when do you get out of this program? Like, how many times do I have to pay? What are you doing there? And so I right up front say, this is a pay as you go. You can stay as long as you want. And when you're tired of paying for that employee, let them know that you don't think it's a benefit anymore. But if you continue seeing progress, continue supporting them. So I put that right up front because it's not always the training department that's confused, because they might get it, but it's a really different concept for the corporate or even a government environment. It's a foreign concept. They just keep going. But that's when I really focus on, we're skill building. We're not just telling somebody how to do it, but we're going to put it to practice so that then when they come out of here, they have confidence and self-esteem and the skills that are very established within their skill set. So it's not
Okay.
just read a book. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Gwendolyn. So our next question comes from Susan Rice. Susan, would you like to take yourself off of mute, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Pat, thank you for your talk. I am a member of well, we call ourselves a corporate club. We are a community club within a corporation, which is actually a government agency. It's a rather small government agency, and I almost cried when you said when the 2 or 3 people get burnt out, your club's going to flounder, because that's what's going to happen to our club. My question is, we have lost our sponsor who was here, our HR director who was there when we first started our club.
Yep.
And we have new HR director, which is fantastic. We're all work from home, so that's not as fantastic. Our club is strong, we're vibrant, we have a great group. My question is, I loved what you said about making the agency responsible for finding members. How do we start that conversation with this new HR director who is supportive by all accounts? But how do we start that conversation about having the agency drive members to us instead of us, begging our friends to join?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a great question. Thank you for asking this question, because this is the type of thing that we would talk about at the corporate liaison grouping at COT. So we could actually get into discussing this, and it could be a case study for people. So what would you do in your circumstance? So what I would do is, if I was a member of that club, or I was a member of that, club or program, I would first of all figure out how do we, what's my relationship with the HR director? And then I would make an appointment, and I would go in and I'd say, I'm not sure if you're aware, because were they hired from outside or inside?
They were hired from outside.
Okay. So I'd say, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we have a Toastmasters program in-house here that's been very successful in the past. What we did in the past was that we made it the responsibility of the people that were actually taking the program to recruit other people to join the program. And over time, we've learned, in order to be successful long-term and actually sustain this program in the corporation, that we need to partner. And I'd like to have that conversation with you either now or sometime in the future when you're able to have that, and talk about how that would actually look. So you have to be prepared to explain to them how that would work. I would also then be prepared to talk about, in case if they don't know anything about Toastmasters, or they say they know about Toastmasters, doesn't mean that they know anything. It means that they've heard the word, right? And they might have even heard that there's Toastmasters in Europe, which doesn't mean that it's Toastmasters International. It means that they had to walk in and they're the Toastmaster. So it can be a whole bunch of things. So I would then say, I'd love to have an opportunity to talk about the benefits for the corporation as well as our employees when they participate in the Toastmasters program, and how we could work and partner with you and your department to actually make it available to our employees. And then I would, so I would talk about it that way. And then then I would also, depending on how brave I was and how good a relationship and what the response was, I'd say, and I'd also like to talk about putting it in the mainstream of our training, so that our training, our skill development for communication and leadership is actually mainstream, that it's not something people are required to do off the corner of their desk, but it's like the other training we do. So it really depends on how training is run in your organization as well. So all of that comes into play. But if training is basically run during the day and is paid for, I'd be stepping right into that boldly. I'd say, we've done it one way, but we've proven that it really works and we get results in the corporation. So I'd like to talk about bringing it in as a partnership so that you could ensure that we've got the people needed and the people that need it are getting the training. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're
Great.
welcome.
Pat, we have less than 10 minutes and I've still got 6 people who have questions.
Okay, I'll be shorter.
So for everyone, we're gonna have to run through as quickly as we can. So the next one is Rick Taylor. Rick, would you like to come off of mute, please?
Yes, hello, Pat. Thanks so much for your time. I wanted to get your perspective on how to approach government Toastmasters chapters as opposed to a corporate Toastmasters chapter. And I know that's not exactly the kind of question that you want to answer with less than 10 minutes to go and 6 more questions, but
nope.
What-
You know what? I've got a very short answer because I've done this in government as well as corporations, and I do it the very same way.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you for a quick question and a quick answer.
All right, great. Thanks, Pat.
Great.
Find out how they do training and then go that way.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you're
Our
welcome.
next question is from Roz Carter. Roz, would you like to come off of mute, please?
Roz Carter, what's she doing here?
Hi, Pat. This is Roz Carter, Region 2 Past Region Advisor. I love you. And
Who
thank
let
you for
you
this
in?
program.
I love
I
you too.
I have often said, and I developed a high performance leadership project as a result of what I've learned from you. New corporate programs start, but they end easily. And some people blame the lack of tenure on the mentors and sponsors not doing good enough, maybe the area directors not saying enough during their visits or connecting with them. How do you feel about the district corporate relations committee and getting that on board and working well from the district perspective?
Well, thanks, Roz. I think that at the district level, ideally, if you're starting to build corporate programs, that we really need a corporate liaison, at a major corporate liaison that's under the club growth, under the district team, that's looking at that and managing. And I think that person actually needs to train the sponsors and the mentors who are going to be involved in the corporate programs, because they have to know the ins and outs, or else they're just creating another community club. So sponsors, mentors, as well as club coaches or program coaches that might go in to have to fix, or that corporate liaison person could go in and work with the corporation and the existing program to get them back on track. So I think that that's a great strategic plan for a district to do if they're going to move in that direction. Yeah, and the other thing that I do, and I think we've talked about this in the past, Roz, is that I'm of the belief that a mentor, that a corporate, excuse me, I'm trying to go fast, that a sponsor should, and this isn't Toastmasters policy, this is Pat's practice, that a sponsor should stay with a club for a year. Because they're babies, they don't even understand the annual cycle, and we abandon them before they've got their toddler legs. They don't know what a proxy is. They don't know there's a district conference. They don't know we vote leaders in at district level. They've never heard of an international convention, never mind an international director or a international president or a region advisor. They don't know any of that lingo. So sponsors really, particularly in corporate programs, have to be involved for a year, and mentors, they're supposed to be there for a year. I would say 2 years to get, and then that's where the corporate liaison then, or that district liaison can take on that management role from there. But you've got to have 2 years of really hard, good, strong mentoring of those clubs for them to survive. If we want to build sustainable clubs, we got to put the time in at the beginning, not build them and walk away and say, hope you guys figure out how to feed yourself.
Exactly.
They starve
Thank
to death.
you.
Yeah,
Great.
they die of neglect, Roz. They die of
Thank-
neglect.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you,
yeah.
Roz. So we have about 5 minutes left. Next question is from Iona Rodericks. Iona, would you like to come off of mute, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Pat. I've read your book from cover to cover. I speak the lingo. As in our district, we have put together a district corporate relationship committee. We've got a corporate strategist. We've got it all going. However, we still struggle. 60% of our corporate clubs are struggling. And how can we facilitate a connection with the corporation or champion that does not currently exist? And believe me, we've tried with our demonstration and showcase meetings. We've done 5 of them. We've invited corporate clubs to them, and we've asked them to use those as demonstration showcase meetings to build. But we don't have that one connection, and we don't know how to do it. So please help.
Oh, I'd probably love to spend some time brainstorming ideas with you, because it sounds like you've done a number of things already, which I could be just repeating to you. Are you willing to just reach out to me one-on-one so we can explore?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, because I think we have to go back to square one and find a contact and then work backwards from there. But I'd love to explore it with you and look at what you've already done.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, we've got 3 minutes. Next one is Yvonne Vaughn.
Hello, Pat. Thank you so much. You've already touched bases on my question, and this is my question for tonight. You talked about sponsors, mentors, and coaches. Do you call them program coaches and mentors and sponsors, or do you have an alternate title for them?
No, I just call them sponsors, mentors, and coaches. I haven't put program in front of it, but you could. Yeah, just to differentiate. I think they have to be trained differently. They're a different breed, and they're going to have different skill sets. And it's also a great place to build leadership skills for those people that come out of the corporation, right? Like, they're great sponsors, mentors, and coaches for future corporate programs if they have come from a pure corporate sponsor, corporate program. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's not mix them up. Let's keep them purebred.
Great, thank you for the question. So we do have 2 more people, but we're out of time. So Pam and Charles, if you could send an email to Pat at patthetrainer@shaw.ca, and Ben has put that in the chat box. And I would like to now turn it back over to our district director, Cynthia D. Williams. Cynthia, are you there?
She went to
I am.
sleep.
Can you hear me?
There she is. Nope, we can
Excellent.
hear you.
No, can't go to sleep on that. Some good information. All right, guys. I really appreciate all that stayed on the call.
Oh, we just lost you, Cynthia.
Ah,
Oh,
There you
there
go.
you're back.
how's this?
There you
Yep.
go. Yep.
Okay. We did have 84. We're at 76, but before the 76 drop off, again, I want to thank you guys for joining in, but I do have a giveaway, and I'm actually going to take off my screenshot so you can, my background, so you can see what I have to give. We are giving away 3. Hear me, I said 3 of Pat Johnson's handbook. So hopefully you can see that upside down.
You're still screen sharing.
Really? Okay.
Oh,
Got it.
maybe I have you. It's not. I've just got it pinned. That's okay.
How about that? Better?
No, I
So we're
just
good.
see a logo, not you.
Okay. Find me under Cynthia, probably. about this.
Your video is not on. Oh, there you go. No, you're on.
Yay, there you are.
So 3 of Pat's handbook. Our first one goes to our first registrant, and that was Lynn Ray Adams in District 18. Our second one goes to Rich, and I put it in the chat box. Rich, what's your last name? He did the first question.
Lemert, Lemert.
And you are from where, Rich?
District 117. I'm the program.
Ah, you're out there. Okay. In 117 neighbor. And it's the third one will go to the club growth director, who is the furthest away from District 18 from the East Coast. If you think you're the furthest away from District 18, raise your hand and come off of mute and say your name.
Where's District 18?
On the East Coast, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland.
I'm in Elizabeth City, North Carolina.
Okay. Can anybody go further than Elizabeth City, North Carolina from the East Coast?
I'm in
Maryland?
Columbia, South Carolina.
All right. So can anybody go beyond
What
Columbia,
about
South?
Toronto, Canada?
Toronto, Canada. And you are a club growth director?
I go for Iona.
All right. So Toronto, Canada. Anybody further than that?
I'm from Malaysia.
Malaysia.
Oh.
Can anybody beat Malaysia?
Yeah, Malaysia wins.
Malaysia wins. All
I
right.
am in Perth, Australia, and I am the corporate liaison officer for District 17.
For District 17. All right, Taz, which is further, Malaysia or Australia? I think Malaysia.
Australia's further.
Australia's further. All right. Thank you, Cecilia. We are with Miss Reagan. She is the furthest thus far. Anybody? Can you beat Australia? And then there was silence. That means silence means confirmation. We have a winner of the third handbook by Pat Johnson, and it's going to go to Lenore Reagan. Lenore, I need you to put your email. No, I have you registered, correct?
Yes, I registered.
And Rich, you registered?
I registered under, just Leonor Ragan.
Excellent. So we have your email address. What we will do.
But I can write it down if you wish.
We have your email address. What we're going to do is actually send you an email and ask you for the mailing address, and we will drop it in the mail for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I didn't expect this so much from all of you. I thank you. I'm overwhelmed. I was so happy to be able to be here to see Pat talking. And I had done more than that. Not only had that privilege, but thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Have a great and very successful growth in the corporate world. Thank you.
Excellent. And again, everyone, thank you so very much for attending. This has been Corporate Conversations with District 18 under our Club Growth Productions. Our Club Growth Director in District 18. Kathleen Davis was our chat monitor. Thank you. She's our finance manager in District 18. And Ben was our timer. Ben Chris is the program quality director. You guys come off of stop video and show your face and wave your hand. But most especially, I want to take time out to thank Pat Johnson for taking the time out for Region 7 as a whole and being able to show up and then show out. So again, we showed up and showed out for Pat because she brought it and she brought it thoroughly. Again, her contact information was listed in the chat box. And again, if you want to reach out to her individually, please, she has her email in the chat box. Definitely, I'm just going to post up her contact information one more time so you can see it. There you are. Ladies and gentlemen, write that down, reach out to her. Let's, as a team together as a whole, work on at our district level with our leaders in changing our mindset, changing how our course on how we approach, support, and conversate with corporate organizations.
100%.
With that said, guys, that's the end of our presentation. Again, I thank you so very much for joining in.
Thank you, Cynthia, for hosting this. Fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you, Pat. I really appreciate it. Oh, this was awesome. I had a whole bunch of questions, but I had to not be selfish and let everybody else ask them.
You know where to find me.
Yes, yes. Ben, I think this is something that we could definitely consider going forward. I definitely don't want to rush into it, but definitely as a team to talk about it, because man, I know every club, I know we're a government agency and everyone is not as, I guess lucky is the word, as we are as a corporate organization where we actually worked with HR in our inception. And in HR, we came to an agreement where a Toastmaster is at the every NEO, no matter what. So that's, even though they didn't implement us into their training program and make it that way, but we are at every NEO orientation and we speak to the new employees coming in. That's why we always have a flow and we're always 30 members strong every dues renewal day. So we keep members coming in and out.
That's great.
Yeah. So I just want to figure out
Bye-bye.
how we can.
Have an
Good night,
awesome
everyone.
weekend.
Have an awesome weekend. Kathleen,
Thank you. Take care. Stay
Thanks,
safe.
Taz.
Stay safe, stay healthy.
Yes.
Bye.
10 people or less.
Yep. Thank you very much. I'm going to enjoy my Saturday morning now from Malaysia.
Oh,
Thank
yes,
you,
Saturday
Malaysia.
morning. Thank you, Malaysia. That was Cecilia, correct?
No, we have a
Yes.
few people here from Malaysia. But I was the first one who answers.
Okay, thanks, Cecilia. So Chris, is it Kishan?
Kishan, yeah.
Kishan. So you're Malaysia as well?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'll,
Kishan is Malaysia as well.
Outstanding.
yeah, I think my PPD is still in the call, I think.
Yes, I'm still here.
You're still here?
Pat.
Okay, still there. Outstanding. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Hopefully.
Good morning, everyone, then. On the
Yes,
other
good morning.
Morning.
Yes, thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Yes. And that's Srini. Okay, hi Srini.
Yes.
Great.
I really didn't know Australia was further away. I just tried my luck.
Look, I didn't either. That's why I put my favorite
I didn't-
Taz on the spot and tell
I
Taz to
didn't
do the
realize that
geographical
either.
stuff.
Because I really
didn't
don't know
realize-
where you're located, you see.
Oh,
I didn't realize
Yes.
that either.
Yeah,
yeah.
that was great giving out the books. That was interesting. We should do that same.
Yeah. I made sure I ordered at least 4 of them, just to make sure I had them by the time this meeting came to pass. So yeah.
Nice seeing the other guys here.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Cecilia. Good to have you. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye
Good day.
bye.
Weekend.
Bye.
And thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Anne Marie. All righty. Who else is on? You know, the captain got to stay with the ship when the ship go down. Everybody's leaving. So, hey, Vita.
Hey, mother.
Hey, Charles.
And Charles.
I sent you a text.
Charles and Martha. Where are you guys from, Charles and Martha?
Columbia. But see, in
South
2000
Carolina, right?
Yes, in
South Carolina.
2014.
Oh,
I
and
moved-
Douglas Wilson. Okay, all South Carolina. So the PQD. Who else do we have?
I'm an area director, but in 2014, I competed in Malaysia, though.
Okay.
That's
Oh,
right.
wow. Okay.
And Douglas coached me.
Yes, we have. Okay, outstanding. So you're area director now, so you're not going to do anything this year. Have you
No, ma'am.
already? Yeah. All right.
Hey, everybody. Have a good night.
So
Good
what,
night,
Anne Marie. What do you do, Anne Marie?
What do I do? I am the District 18 Club Growth
Oh,
Director.
you're Anne Marie.
I'm Cynthia,
What do you do, Cynthia?
the district director.
District director.
Oh,
So our trio is here. So Anne Marie is the club growth, and Ben Chris is the program quality director and the district director.
so where are you located?
So we're in District 18 is in the USA, and we're well, you're in South Carolina, so we're Maryland, Delaware. We have 5 states: Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Virginia.
So we're all part of Region 7.
All a part of Region 7. That's correct.
So are you right next to District 36?
Right next door.
Okay.
36, 29, 27.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So Warda, is it
Yeah.
Warda? You look
Yes.
familiar.
Yay, how you doing, Charles?
I think Warda.
But thank you for this webinar workshop, corporate training.
Yeah.
It was excellent. I have 3 corporate clubs in my area.
Oh, just
And I know in our TLI last year I was division director. Now I'm an area director again. And I had discussed it with my area director last year. We need to do something different for the corporate clubs.
Yes, because I have a corporate club in my area too.
And so this was excellent. It gave me the language and ideas on things that we can do.
Did we lose Wardra? Her bandwidth went out, or is it mine?
But
She just froze up.
Okay.
But you know, one thing I
Border has
didn't.
bandwidth problems.
Okay.
So Cynthia, if you want to stop recording, because I have some people who wanted to